All right, we are in lesson 20, transformations, transversals, and proof. So let's talk a little bit more about angle relationships. This is always one of my favorite parts about geometry are the angle relationships because it can be a little bit fun, in my opinion. I know I'm a math teacher, but I think it can be a little bit fun. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the right lesson. There we are. So we have two lines that are parallel, and we actually mark them parallel by that little mark. Okay, and I'm going to mark these with that little mark. Okay, one arrow is parallel to one arrow, two arrows are parallel to two arrows. So these two lines are parallel. Mentally evaluate the measure of x in each figure. So I know that this is a linear pair. Okay, so that one's going to be 140. We also know this is a vertical pair, and this is a vertical pair, right? Now, when these are parallel, I can actually translate. Let's change colors. I don't know if I can color it in. This angle, I can slide it. A directed line segment this far, okay? It's a translation. By directed line segment, I don't know, A. And I can get angle X, it's a translation. So I know that angle X is also going to be 40 degrees because it's a translation. I just wanted to show you the rest of them too because I think it's kind of funny. Now, this one, if I take this angle and I translate it down here, okay, just slide, translate by directed line segment B, by ray B, or vertex, nope, vector, there it is, vector B, that means that this measurement would be right here. And then I can reflect it over here and get X is 61 degrees. All right, so this is a transversal. What's great is we know when two lines are parallel, when you can get a line that crosses them, it's called a transversal. And we can say a lot about the angles in here and their relationship with each other. Okay. All right. So again, we're doing angle X. So I'm gonna translate it first. Well, let's not do that. Let's do this. If I know that's 98, I can do this angle up here. So that's 180. Now I can translate this angle straight down, and that'd also be 82. Oops, I said 82. I wrote 88. All right, so first I found my supplementary linear pair. It's the first thing I did. And then I translated it. Cool. Let's see, I'm trying to get there. So why don't I do my vertical angles first? And then I can translate it. And that would be 125 degrees. All right, so make a mark, give a reason. Here are intersecting lines AE and CD. So let's translate lines AE and CD by the directed segments from B to C. I'm going to see if there's something in Geogebra for this, okay? I will be right back. I'm going to pause. There's not. I'm so bummed. That would have been great. So let's translate lines AE and CD by the directed segment from B to C. So from B to C. See you, JR? So I want this line translated BC. This is going to be new A and new E. Cool? All right, what's our next step? AB prime. That should be B prime. translate lines AE and CD by directed line segment from B to C. Okay, I think we're there. I'm going to label this B prime, E prime. Oh, I didn't do that part. It's good. Awesome. Which means this would be D prime. I just moved the whole picture down, right? Now, what is true about lines AE, right here, AE and AE? Well, those are parallel. Because we learned earlier that when we translate, remember when we translated that one picture with a bunch of vectors? So these are parallel because when we translate by a directed line segment, we make parallel lines. So we know that these two lines are parallel. For each pair of congruent angles that you find, explain to your partner how you know the angles are congruent. Well, we don't need to do that, but I am going to name the pair of congruent angles. I can say, and I'm going to use the name, so angle EBC is congruent to angle E prime, B prime, C prime. Right there and right there. I can also say angle ABC, A prime, B prime, C prime, because I just did a translation. So that would be this one. Okay, I can actually keep going. Angle DBA is congruent to angle D prime, B prime, A prime. Angle DBE is congruent. Did I say parallel earlier? Sorry. D prime, B prime, E prime. So I just did, first I did these two. I'll go 3 and 3, and then 4 and 4, which is really messy. That's kind of awful. Are there any others? We can actually go just a little bit further. It's not in the answer key, but I can also name the vertical angles. So I did the translated angles, those two angles, and those two angles, but I don't want those written there. I can also talk about the vertical angles. I can talk about DBE and this one, ABC. Crazy, I know. So I just mentioned these, which are also going to be congruent to these. All four of those are going to be congruent. D, B, E. D prime, B prime, E prime is congruent to, hold on, I did DBE here, and I want to do this one. Yep, DBE, and this one, A prime, B prime, C prime. Okay, so all four of those are congruent because they're all vertical angles and I translated them. Okay, I can do that one more time. So I just did DBE. So I did these two. Well, that would be in yellow though. So I did these vertical angles and these vertical angles. Now let's do these vertical angles and these vertical angles. So that would be angle DBA and angle EBC and angle E prime, B prime, C prime, forgot the angle symbol, and angle D prime, B prime, A prime. Okay, lots of congruent angles. That was a mouthful. Okay, but they're so important, really important. Okay. Now, an alternate explanation. So we have intersecting lines, yada, yada. Now we're going to rotate line AE 180 degrees around point C. So rotate this, I'm going to get that wrong, 180 degrees around point C. So we're taking this over here. So if we're going around point C, that means I'm going to be about, oof, that was bad. The distance from C to B is going to be about the same. And parallel. So this would be A prime. This would be B prime. And this would be E prime. And these two lines are parallel because we did 180 degrees and that's parallel. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, I went around C prime. Cool. Now we can do the same thing. All right, what is true about A, B, and A prime, B prime? They're parallel, okay? Okay, because of 180 degree rotation. I don't think I finished this. A, B, D, E, C, E prime, B prime, A prime. I forgot about D prime. I think I got them all. Yep, okay. So what do we know? They're parallel, rotation by 180 degrees, takes lines to parallel lines. Number 3, take turns with your partner. For each pair of congruent angles you find, explain to your partner how you know they're congruent. They're the same as before. We can say that this angle is congruent to that angle, is congruent to this angle, is congruent to that angle. These two, because it's a rotation, and then the other two because they're vertical. Okay, these are vertical, so they're congruent. That rotated up there, so those are congruent. All right. So I did the dots this time because writing those angles, I don't see as much value in that. I think it can be quite confusing. Okay. And this is a beautiful way to draw things. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of labeling to make sure that we know some words. And those words are, there we are. Okay, these, you need to write these down. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Okay, they're alternating sides of the transversal and the inside of the parallel lines, alternate interior. All right, these two are corresponding. Corresponding angles are congruent. They're on the same side of the transversal, both above the parallel lines, so they're in corresponding spots. Okay. Is that it? Yep, that is. So we know when alternating, when, you can do this, when alternating interior angles are congruent, we know lines are parallel. Okay, we can also say the converse of that. When lines are parallel, alternate interior angles are congruent. Oh, golly. Those are called converses of each other. So you can say when alternating interior angles are congruent, we know lines are parallel. You can also say when lines are parallel, we know alternating interior angles are congruent. They go back and forth. I can go one way or the other. I can use parallel lines to prove angles are congruent, or I can use angles are congruent to prove lines are parallel. All right, and I can do the same thing for this one. First, we can say when corresponding angles are congruent, we know lines are parallel. And then I can also say when lines are parallel, alternating interior angles, no. When lines are parallel, corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, flip side, converse. All right, that was it for today. Good job.